Today I'm going to show you how to change a transmission fluid on a Toyota Land Cruiser. Specifically, the Land Cruiser gonna be 2016 to 2021. The first step is to remove the number 2 engine undercover. The second step is to remove the transmission oil pan protector assembly. The third step is to remove the transmission case cover on the driver's side of the transmission using a 12mm socket. Since the space is really tight and the bolt is really hard to get to, I suggest you to use a low profile socket or a long ratcheting wrench. After removing all the covers on the transmission, the next step will be remove the refill plug and the O-ring from the automatic transmission assembly using a 24mm socket. Again, in here I still suggest you to use a low profile socket. Now we will start the transmission fluid draining process. The first step is to put a large measurement cup under a transmission draining plug. This will allow us to exactly measure how much fluid coming out from the transmission oil pan. Using a 5mm hex socket wrench to loosen the transmission drain plug. Then remove this drain plug and gasket from the automatic transmission assembly and drain the automatic transmission fluid. Wait until there is only a small amount of fluid coming out from the overflow plug hole. Again, using a 5mm hex socket wrench, remove the transmission oil pan tube from the overflow plug hole. Continuously drain the automatic transmission fluid. Wait until all the fluid have been drained from the transmission oil pan. Look at your measurement cup. The approximate amount of fluid that's gonna be drained is around 2.9 US quarts. Now, using the 5mm hex socket wrench, temporarily install the transmission oil pan tube into the overflow plug hole. Then, using the 5mm hex socket wrench, temporarily install the gasket and the overflow plug to the automatic transmission oil pan. Now, using a fluid pump to add the automatic transmission fluid into the transmission oil pan from the refill hole. The total amount of transmission fluid added should equal to the total amount of the transmission fluid drained from the transmission oil pan. Approximately, it's equals to 2.9 US quart or maybe 3 US quart. Now let's temporarily reinstall the fuel plug. Now we have finished a simple drain and refill, and we now should restart the vehicle to let the new fluid cycle into the transmission. In here, I strongly recommend you to have a Toyota tech stream ready to monitor the transmission temperature while restarting the vehicle, or you can have a transmission temperature gauge purchased through Amazon just to make sure your transmission is not overheating when starting the vehicle. Now, with the parking brake set on, depress and hold the brake pedal to start the vehicle engine. To reduce load, make sure that all electronic systems such as air conditioning, lighting system, electronic fan or audio system are off. Now slowly shift the lever from park to reverse, then to neutral, and to drive, and then to each gear from first gear to the 8th gear, and then do this couple times with a shifting interval equals to 3 seconds. By doing this, you are allowing the transmission fluid cycled within the transmission. After doing 3 or 4 times, then let the engine idle for 1 minute to warm it up, and then turn off the engine. So now we need to repeat the entire process from draining to refuel to run the vehicle entirely 2 to 3 times. In here, I recommend you to do it in total of 3 times in order to let the old fluid fully cycled out from the transmission and the new fluid fully cycled in. During the last round of drain, refill, and run process. In this round of draining, after you drain all the fluid out, make sure you put the transmission oil pan tube back onto the automatic transmission assembly. Do not over-tight the plastic tube. The specific torque gonna be 7-inch foot-pound only. In the refuel process, make sure you put extra half quart of transmission fluid into the transmission oil pan. By doing this, we are preparing for a transmission fluid adjustment later. Now let's start the fluid adjustment process. I strongly recommend you to take a day to let the vehicle sit for a long time, because we need the transmission temperature to be cool in order to properly operate the fluid adjustment process. With the vehicle on the ignition on mode, connect the vehicle to the TechStream software. In the main screen, choose Powertrain, ETC, Active Test, connect the TC and TE1, and you need to active the connect the TC and TE1 to on. Just select it to on. Now with the engine started, hold the brake, slowly move the shift from park to drive, then move the shift back to park. Again, slowly move the shift from park to drive. While on the drive, we need to move the shift lever back and forth between neutral and D at an interval less than 1 second for approximately 6 seconds or more. Check the D shift indicator turns off for 2 seconds while moving back and forth. This means that your ATF temperature detection mode is activated. Now move the shift lever from neutral to park and release the brake pedal. In the TechStream screen, choose connect the TC and TE1 to off. For this entire operation, I strongly recommend you to practice in advance before you are really doing the operation. When the transmission fluid temperature reaches 102 Fahrenheit, the drive shift indicator will come on again, even when your shift lever is at the P now. When the drive light is illuminated, immediately begin fluid checking process. Use the 5mm hex socket. Remove the overflow plug and gasket. Check the amount of automatic transmission fluid coming out of the overflow hole. If the amount is large, wait until the ATF flows slowly and only drips coming out. If there is no fluid coming out, remove the refill plug and then add more fluid to the refill hole. Then wait until the fluid flows slowly and only drips coming out. So now we see only drips coming out from the overflow hole. Immediately tighten the overflow plug and use a new gasket. Install the overflow plug and torque it to 12 foot-pound. Install the refill plug and a new O-ring and torque it to 29 foot-pound. Now we finish the fluid adjustment. We need to reinstall the transmission case cover. Torque the 3 bolts to 9 foot-pound. The final 2 steps will be reinstall the oil pan protector with the 4 bolts, torque it to 37 foot-pound. Then the last step will be reinstall the number 2 engine undercover, and we need to torque the bolt to 21 foot-pound. Alright, that's all for the transmission fluid replacement process for Toyota Land Cruiser 2016 Plus. If this is the first time you are trying to do yourself a transmission fluid replacement, I strongly recommend you to leave 2 to 3 days to yourself to get all the process done. It's very critical that you put the right fluid into the transmission. I strongly suggest you do not use any aftermarket product, because this 8-speed automatic transmission is known to be very sensitive to the fluid. When compared to the traditional Toyota 6-speed automatic transmission, this transmission is not that bulletproof. It is also critical that you are correctly adjusted the fluid level after you did a transmission fluid replacement. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.